Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gruff Talk, where each week we take a deep dive into all the ways we can feel better, look better, live better, and age better. I'm your host, Barbara Hannah Grufferman. I'm a huge believer in embracing a few simple, healthy habits to age well. Move your body every day, eat good food, and maybe a little bit less. Get enough sleep, manage the stress in your life, and stay connected to people who care about you. But sometimes we have to dig a little deeper to discover what might have a huge impact on the cells in our bodies that can contribute to either premature aging, and maybe even an early death, or successful aging. Longevity researchers have made some really exciting breakthroughs in recent years, with a lot of attention paid to discovering how different parts of our cells contribute to premature aging. Some are focused on extending your lifespan, meaning how long you actually live, while others are looking for ways to help us live as long as possible without disease or disability, which is known as health span. One of the hottest topics and the biggest buzzwords in the longevity world is inflammation, or inflammaging, as it's often referred, which has been linked to a wide range of illnesses that can shorten your health span and lengthen your disease span. Some researchers are even looking at inflammation as a cause of aging itself. All of this explains why the National Institutes of Health, NIH, recently made inflammation a top research priority. You'll be hearing and reading a lot more about inflammation and how to reverse it as new research keeps coming out. And in fact, I will have a leading expert on inflammation and its effect on aging in an upcoming episode, so stay tuned for that. But today, we're taking a very deep dive into a very simple step that the vast majority of you can be taking to help fight inflammation. Walking. Yep, walking. My guest today is Joyce Shulman, who is co-founder and CEO of 99 Walks and also the founder of Jetty Fitness, two wellness and walking lifestyle brands on a mission to create communities and get 1 million women walking their way to better health and healthy aging. Joyce is also a really motivating speaker who gave one heck of a TEDx talk. You'll find the link in the show notes and on my website. And she wrote a terrific book, which came out at the very beginning of the pandemic. It's called Walk Your Way to Better, 99 Walks That Will Change Your Life. And she is the host, sometimes with her husband, Eric Cohen, of a weekly live walking podcast, which thousands of people across the country listen to while they're walking, right? Brilliant. I know. It's a walk and talk. And I was very lucky enough to be a guest on the show. So let's just kind of walk toward our episode now. And which I say, walk this way. Hello, Joyce, and welcome to Gruff Talk.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat today.
I know. Now, we're not walking and talking like we do with your show. And I was so fortunate to be a guest on your show a few months ago when I was actually visiting my daughter in South Carolina, if you recall. It was such a great conversation. But we are in our respective studios with our headphones on, and we'll have to take a little photo later of us so we can share it. But before we start talking about what you do and why you do it and why you started doing it, here's a warm-up question for you. What did you have for breakfast today, Joyce?
So I had the same thing I actually have for breakfast most days, which is a shake into which I pour about a day's worth of vegetables and some vegan protein powder and a whole bunch of other things. But I didn't actually get to drink it until about 10 o'clock because I started my day with a bone density test.
Oh, and did you get the results yet? Can you share, or you don't know yet?
They take about a week, though this is my second test. And I got to say, the first test, the results were a little disappointing.
Do you want to share that too?
Sure.
Can I ask, are you low bone density?
I am. So I have osteopenia.
Mm-hmm. So do I.
But I do everything. I do everything you're supposed to do. So I had assumed that it was going to come back perfect. And
can I ask a question? Are you vegan?
I am not.
No, you're not vegetarian. I mean, you're
Nope.
not. No, okay, just but really very good on taking a lot of vegetables, even early in the day.
Yeah.
In
Yep.
your protein shake.
Yep.
That's really great. And I ask only because I mentioned in an episode a few weeks ago about a study that women, postmenopausal women who are vegan are at much greater risk for osteoporosis and osteopenia, but osteoporosis and fracture because they're vegan and they're not getting the right nutrients. So they just have to be more careful and be, better at doing the strength training. Now, we will get to it in a minute, and I know that you're really big on strength training, so you must be very, very frustrated. But let's see what it shows, and I'd love to hear. I know we're not going to know the results of your test on this show, but I would like to hear when you know, and we're like, fingers crossed that everything will be fine.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
So funny because I'm going from mine. I do it now every 2 years. I am low bone density also, and I became aware of that when I broke my arm when I turned 50, right after going through menopause. I've told the story many, many times, written about it a lot too, because it really was my own personal aha moment. And that's when I got on track with all of my healthy living better, aging better plan, which I, nag everybody else to do as well.
I'm right there with you.
Fingers crossed, Joyce. Fingers crossed. Now, listen. I started the episode in my introduction talking about something called inflammaging, right? Which is really, it's a term that has been very hot now, which is chronic inflammation in the body that can contribute to a lot of health issues for people in midlife. And it really speeds up premature aging, which will definitely not help you to age better, right? Right.
Absolutely.
And as it turns out, physical activity plays a huge role in dousing the flames of inflammation, as I like to say. But it isn't always so easy to embrace moving more. It's hard. There's this thing we have called life that can often impose itself on our greatest plans to move more. We all know that. So I thought having you on the show would motivate our listeners to think about new ways to move more, including one of the most basic of all human functions, walking. Okay, so let's get to it. Joyce, why is walking so important?
Oh my gosh. So how much time do we have exactly? I always like to talk about the power of walking through the lens of mind, mood, and body. And I think we often start when we think about movement, we think about exercise, we always start with our bodies because that's how we've been conditioned. But it turns out that what often keeps us going is how we feel after a single walk or after we start a walking practice. So I'd like to save body for the end and start with our mind.
So it's really your mind that gets you going, gets you putting on the sneakers and getting out the door.
It's also the power of walking to protect our mind. Actually, there's a new study out, and there are so many studies supporting this, but there's yet another recent study about how a regular walking practice, and brisk walking in particular, is incredibly protective against dementia and Alzheimer's. So the research around walking and your brain is walking can literally make your hippocampus bigger. It can help you develop and grow new gray matter. It strengthens your white matter. That's like the connective tissue, like the scaffolding of your brain. And the studies show it over and over and over again. Improve your memory, reduce your risk of dementia and Alzheimer's, all those kinds of things that come with aging, boost your creativity, improve your executive function. The list is really long. There's a fabulous study out of Stanford University about the power of walking to fire up your creativity. Has this ever crossed your radar?
Absolutely. And I also often quote some information about how Beethoven, I'm a Beethoven groupie. If Beethoven were still alive today, I'd be following him on, Instagram and every other social media platform, right? And standing outside of his concerts like, come on, give me your autograph. Beethoven wrote in his mind some of his greatest pieces while he walked around town.
Many of our greatest thinkers and creators had a regular walking practice. So it's A single walk, 20 minutes, can boost your creativity by up to 60%. And you hold on to those benefits for some period of time after your walk.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like as a culture, we're kind of conditioned now to think, if I need to figure something out, I need to sit down in front of my computer and I'm going to Google it until I crack it. But the truth is that our brains are so powerful. We have to give them the opportunity to work at their very best.
Mm-hmm.
So short-term benefits of walking for your brain, and then the longer-term protective benefits.
So let's talk about, though, another benefit, which you gave a truly inspiring TEDx talk, Joyce, which I loved. And I will share, the link to the TEDx talk will be in the show notes and on my website when this airs. And you talked about walking and the social benefits of walking, not just the physical benefits, which you just described in great detail, but specifically how walking can combat loneliness. Tell us about that.
We are, as many people know, suffering from a loneliness epidemic in this country. It's been coined that by our Surgeon General, who is very passionate about this topic. And this started long before the COVID pandemic. So it's only gotten worse as we've become even more isolated over the last couple of years. And what I discovered from my own personal experience, and I hear this from so many people, I have the best conversations with my girlfriends and my partner when we're out walking.
Mm-hmm.
The conversation just bounces from one thing to another. It's really a very special opportunity to connect. And it got me thinking, why is that? What is the science behind that? What is actually happening when we walk together? And it turns out that there's a whole lot going on when we are walking together. Everything from the power of sharing an experience, which is incredibly powerful, to the hormones that get activated in our body. So
feel
walking,
good hormones.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So moving to the walking for our mood, right? So walking does activate those feel-good hormones, endorphins, serotonin, dopamine. But it turns out that when you're walking with other people, especially women walking together, you get a dose of oxytocin,
Mm-hmm.
which is the love hormone, the connection hormone, the breastfeeding hormone. It is a hormone that our bodies deliver when our bodies are trying to encourage our connection with other people.
Mm-hmm. I am a runner. You know that from when I was on your wonderful podcast. And I take a great deal of pleasure of running by myself because, as we just discussed a few minutes ago, it's a great time to let your creative juices flow, solve problems. I mean, I know if I have something that's really bothering me, an issue, I find that I can come to some resolution on it when I'm going for a run, and I just open up my mind to all the possibilities. And that's true of my creative juices as well. But I also truly love the power of being with my running group when we go for those long training runs. As we, a lot of us are training for the upcoming New York City Marathon. And we go for these weekly long runs, and those we do together. And again, we go at a pace where we can actually talk. So we're still not quite walking and talking, we're running and talking about what you do this week and restaurants and what's going on with you. Is there an issue? And helping the person solve the problem. So we get this. I totally understand from a very gut level what you're talking about. It really, really, really helps. So I like the balance of the two. I like the alone time. And I also like that social time. It certainly helps me. You believe so much in the power of walking. I mean, there is a backstory to why you do, of course, and that you actually started a company that has walking at its very core, its very center. Tell us about 99 Walks, what it is, why you started it, and why the heck 99 walks?
Absolutely.
Where'd you come up with that number?
But I want to be sure that and it all will sort of tie together, but I do want to be sure that we talk a little bit about the physical benefits of walking too. I don't want to skip that because while I do look at it through mind, mood, and body, the physical benefits are incredible. So looking at all...
Excuse me, Joyce, you mean, because we did cover physical benefits, meaning all, fending off dementia and cardiovascular disease. But when you say physical benefits, you mean maybe maintaining a good, healthy weight? Or what do you mean by that?
cardiovascular benefits,
Oh, mm-hmm.
reduction in the incidence of several kinds of cancer, including breast cancer. They've
Absolutely. And
seen
a new study just came out actually this week. I was going to bring it up, how physical activity, and you can use walking as one of those physical activities, can help to fend off breast cancer. And I thought that was really very promising.
absolutely. So, and absolutely help you maintain a healthy weight, which is a big part of how I've maintained a healthy weight throughout my life. It is largely my walking practice. So looking at all of the benefits, the incredible benefits of a regular walking practice, looking at the loneliness epidemic, looking at my personal walking practice and all it's done for me since I was 16 years old, we started a conversation. My husband, who's been my business partner from the jump for 25 years, started a conversation.
Co-founded your business with you, correct?
Yes. Yep. We've been on an entrepreneurial path together actually for 25 years. And the question was, how do we create something that really can encourage more women to connect and get moving? How can we give them the tools and the inspiration and the mindset and everything they need to do to get from here to there? Because as you said earlier, getting moving is hard. We're busy.
And not only getting started, but sticking with it is very tricky.
It's so funny because the research shows, and I'm sure you're familiar with this, that some people have trouble getting started while other people love. I'm a little bit of, I call myself an idea junkie. I love getting started. Love it. So for me, it's the sticking with it. Some people have trouble getting started, which is so interesting. So 99 Walks is a social fitness app for women. And we invite our pack members, that's what we call our community, to set their own monthly walking goal. We're not about step counting. And I think there's a place for that, anything that'll help encourage you to get moving. But as we were talking about through your running practice, through my walking practice, there are benefits that come when you carve out some measure of time to walk. And you don't get those by parking further away in the parking lot. So more steps is great. More movement is great. But at 99 Walks and in my practice, my personal practice, I'm really focused on carving out that time.
So really what you would call intentional walking, because you're right. Those are the kind of tips that experts give about how to get more steps into your day or more physical activity into your day, to take the stairs instead of the elevator, move the car further away, don't take the car at all, things like that. But what you're saying is you want intentional, planned walking.
Planned or opportunistic. What I find for myself and for members of the 99 Walks community is when you start to tune in and understand the way a walk can reduce your cortisol, can make you feel better, can help you process your anxiety. There are days when you hit that 3 o'clock mark or that 5 o'clock or whenever it is, and you realize that what you need right then is a walk. And you look at your calendar or you look at your phone and you realize you have 10 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour maybe, and take that time to do something really powerful for yourself. So it's both ways. It's scheduling those intentional walks and committing to yourself. It's scheduling those walks with friends because we show up for our people even more often than we're willing to show up for ourselves. And then being an opportunistic walker where you say like, oh, look at this, I've got 15 minutes.
You know, it's so interesting. I was just thinking about how over the course of my life, whether it's been personal or business, even when I've had to have a sometimes challenging conversation with someone, I very often would do a walk and talk so that you're not making direct eye contact. Somehow makes it a lot easier, whether it's to gently criticize someone or, show them a different way of doing something. Sometimes it's a lot easier to do it while you're walking. And then as you're walking together, as you mentioned, all the benefits that are happening, including the feel-good hormones are happening. So it just makes everything a lot easier to convey and to discuss. Some very difficult conversations have taken place in my life while walking.
It's very smart. Yep. And the research supports that conflict resolution while you're walking. One of the other things that often happens, which is so interesting, is that people will sync up their steps while they're walking, even if they're different heights. And there are researchers who believe that kind of synchronicity is really helpful in conflict resolution as well.
You know, we were talking about steps and counting steps. I mean, I am guilty of kind of counting everything on my body. I have, you know, my Apple Watch looking at my sleep patterns, and everything you could think of measuring in my body is being measured. It's really, I've become a little fanatic about it because I find it fun. Like being a researcher and a writer, I just like to know a lot of these kinds of details about my own body. So it gives me a great deal of pleasure when I do hit that 10,000 or more number, steps a day for sure. But I read recently about some new research that shows that walking at least 10,000 steps a day actually does work. It can help combat specifically type 2 diabetes, which was fascinating to me because in recent years, a lot of experts publicly wondered about, like, where the heck are the stats to support those 10,000 steps as the magical number to better health and better aging anyway? Like, where did it even come from? Who was the arbiter? Who was the one who said, yes, that's the magic number, 10,000 steps? Well, I dug a little bit deeper. And in fact, the 10,000 steps a day prescription has a really interesting backstory. It all started in Japan as a marketing ploy, as it turns out. But that's a long story, which we won't get into now. But according to this new research, 10,000 steps actually is the sweet spot, as it turns out. So I think I know the answer from what you said before, but what do you personally aim to do every day for you personally? And what do you encourage your 99 Walks members to do? I mean, do you try to get them to either do it as a time thing, maybe not steps thing, but like get out there for 30 minutes, get out there for an hour, or whatever it is you can do? What's your goal there?
So the research around the number of steps is very nuanced. And while there is that 10,000 is viable goal, there is also a ton of research that says going from a very low level of activity to, gosh, I'm going to get the number wrong, but it's somewhere between 3,500 and then getting over 7,000, you see tremendous benefit. And I always worry that we're giving people a negative or a discouraging message for all the people who aren't active. So it's easy for people like you and I who've been active most of our lives. I assume you've been active your whole life.
Oh, no. No. That is part of my story too. It's like, I did some Jane Fonda in the day and whatever. No, I didn't start taking all of this very seriously until I hit 50 and went through menopause. That is my backstory. So
I thought you were
running at
active.
50.
That I know, but I sort of had assumed like there was some underlying
sports.
Nope.
Yeah,
no.
Nope. Walking. No, I like to lift my arm and hail that taxi.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, no.
Well, the greatest benefits in your health and wellness and longevity come in those early stages of just getting moving and picking up the pace. So it's a long way of saying it is not, in my mind, about 20 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day or whatever it is. It's about recognizing that literally every walk counts. There's other research.
Every step counts.
Every step counts. A 10-minute walk following a meal. You know, our grandmothers were right. At the end of the day, right? Everything you want to know.
Walk.
Right. And there's research that a 10-minute walk after a meal is really powerful for your blood sugar levels. Really powerful to help combat diabetes. So if you do nothing else, how about a 10-minute walk after dinner? So the idea of prescribing, 10,000 steps or an hour a day, gosh, we just have to meet everybody where they are.
Where they are. And you have to start where you are too, everyone.
Have to start where you are.
Yeah. And we're also different in what motivates us. I mean, I am motivated by hitting a goal. So for me, trying to get to 10,000 steps a day kind of works, but that may not work for everybody. And so again, to your point, everybody should really start where they are, and we need to reach people where they are. After this short break, we'll talk about how you can harness the power of walking to age better. Stay tuned. Okay, I'm back with my guest, Joyce Shulman, co-founder of 99 Walks, speaker and author of a really terrific book, which I told you about in the beginning, and there will be links for everything in the show notes. Joyce, you've motivated a lot of people to put on their sneakers and get out there. What do you think really motivates people the most about starting a walking program? You know, a better understanding what will happen if they don't move more, which is like a form of negative selling. Or what? What have you found has worked?
I have a really unfortunate answer to this, and I'm going to tell you straight up. 95% of women, I can't speak for men because women is the cohort with whom I work, 95% of them will tell you that the reason they want to start a walking practice is they want to lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
That's the truth of it. I wish that wasn't the case.
It's not the health. It's not to keep diabetes type 2 or any of those other issues away. It is to lose weight. Okay. And you know what? If that's their goal, if that is someone's goal, again, we're meeting them where they are, right? And if that's their goal and all the other benefits are happening too, well, that's good. I personally wish that the focus would be a little bit more on the health issues, because that is what I nag people about with every single thing I do, every podcast I do, everything I write. But if that is going to motivate someone to move more, right?
Well, there's a second half of this answer.
Oh, please.
So the first part is what motivates them to get started, right? A little bit about what we were talking about.
Yeah.
But what motivates them to keep going is invariably how they feel.
Mm-hmm.
If they tune in to how they feel, that's what keeps you going day in and day out. And then those health benefits come. But the problem is improving your blood sugar levels, getting off your blood pressure medication. All of that takes time.
Mm-hmm.
So what's going to keep you going day in and day out until you really start to see those benefits, which we see over and over and over again? And in my experience, what keeps people going is they realize very quickly, they feel a sense of accomplishment, like when you close the rings on your phone.
Yes.
Right? They feel, they get that little dopamine hit, that sense of accomplishment, and they physically, mentally, emotionally feel better.
Right. That's the short-term benefit or gain versus the long-term benefit or gain. And for me, that is also true. When I first started, I love the feeling I have when I'm done with a run or a brisk walk or a workout with, strength training, whatever it is I'm engaged in doing. And I like the way my cheeks look a little rosier and clearly my feel-good hormones are going up because I feel good. I feel better. So that is the short-term gain, right? And then you're right. Then it's balanced at some point when people recognize those long-term gains are actually really happening, including, by the way, which I do like to talk about, which you already hit upon, about weight management. A long-term gain, and not too long, is that, you could look better in your favorite jeans as a result, right? As well as keeping your heart healthy and your brain healthy and everything else that's good. Yeah, so
exactly.
Absolutely. So what are some of the best tips that you have that you give to your members of 99 Walks to help them get started and to help them stick with it?
So it starts with something we've already talked about, which is setting very doable goals. And I often worry about people, members of 99 Walks and people in general, who will say to me, I have turned over a new leaf. I am going to walk 3 miles every day. I'm like, you are just asking to fail because it's going to rain. You're not going to feel good. The dog is going to there's always going to be something. So it is about setting goals that you truly can live with. And smaller goals that you can accomplish are great. Start where you are, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, wherever it is, and build upon that. So that's piece number one, is not buying into this idea of what fitness and wellness and fitness walking and all of that looks like, and do what feels right for you. So that's first. The second we also talked about, which is I call it walking in 3 ways, right? So you can walk with a friend. If you make that commitment, you are more than likely to show up. Walking in a way that you have scheduled your walk, put it on your calendar like any other important
I'm
appointment.
a big believer in that. I put everything.
I assume you schedule your runs, right?
Absolutely. I schedule all of my runs, especially if they involve other people.
But even not.
Like, they're on my calendar.
And I think that's so important to keep reminding people, because I think people would look at you and think like, well, that's just part of what she does. Like, it's automatic.
It's automatic. And, I did an episode, it was a solo episode where I just talked about all the ways that a thought becomes, and an intention becomes an action, which if you do that action enough, turns into a habit. If you do something one time, it's not a habit. You may think, oh yeah, well that's so now I'm a runner, or now I'm a walker. Unless you do it consistently, it's not a habit. But you're right. That's a goal. That's a really big goal, is to have it be so automatic you don't even think about it anymore. It's like, oh yeah, it's Thursday night. Tomorrow morning, I'm putting my sneakers out, so I put them on for Friday morning. I mean, just automatic, like brushing your teeth.
But even that requires a certain amount of planning, right? It's automatic for you, but this might not make sense what I'm trying to get at. But what's automatic for you is planning and committing.
Mm-hmm.
But even at your level, you still have to plan and commit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that sometimes I think gets lost, is people just assume that I work out frequently, that I walk frequently. But these things are on my calendar. Otherwise, they don't happen.
Right. No, that it's critically important. And because one of the first things we talked about when I introduced you into the show is that there's this thing called life, which takes a lot of time to do. You've got commitments outside of your own personal, physical movement time that you have to take into consideration. And if you don't, in my opinion, and I think yours too, if you don't schedule, it's just not going to happen. The day will go by, or the evening will go by, and that walk didn't happen, or that run didn't happen. But let's talk also about other forms of exercise. We agree, you and I, walking is the very foundation. It's a foundation. Now, I'm a runner. Yeah. I love to run marathons for a lot of reasons. I love the training and kind of working toward that end result. I love the end result itself, the race and the camaraderie and the cheering. And I love that medal. I am motivated by medals like you have no idea. I love those medals. But I also am a big walker. And I also am a big, big believer and proponent of a very important aspect of physical movement, strength training or resistance training, really, the one and the same, or both. I know that you do this too. Tell us a little bit about that.
I started lifting weights before it was cool. And when I say that, I mean, I started lifting weights when I was 18 years old.
Really?
Yep. I started in college and I have never stopped, which is why, frankly, when I got that diagnosis of osteopenia 2 years ago, I was not happy.
Mm-hmm.
But I have always loved the feeling of strength that weightlifting gives me. And it's taken different forms throughout my life, free weights, machines, all the things. And gosh, I don't know, it's probably 5 or 6 years ago that I got involved in CrossFit. So my husband is a competitive CrossFit athlete. Last year, he was number 16th in the world in his age group. So he's pretty serious about this.
Impressive.
And for quite a while, I don't know how much you know about the CrossFit world, but when people get involved in CrossFit, they are exhausting about it. So,
and any more so than runners?
Oh, way
That's all
more
we seem
so.
to talk about. Mm-hmm.
Oh no, way more so.
Mm-hmm.
So I was resistant for a while until you just you can't fight them. What's the expression? If you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah, exactly right.
So weightlifting is a big part of what I do.
Mm-hmm. Just getting back to your osteopenia, your low bone density, I mean, clearly you're doing everything right. It sounds like you're eating really, really well. and you're exercising your bones with strength training and resistance training, and you have been for a number of years. I don't know if you've gone through menopause or not. You have, and there could be a genetic component. I don't know if you're, on either your mother or your father's side. And there are, believe it or not, a lot of other reasons why women lose, and men lose bone mass and bone density. So I would love to continue that conversation with you. I think it would be really interesting to have you back on the show and talk specifically about your bones, Joyce, because I personally am very intrigued right now. I mean, you are like a role model for what to do to have solid bone density at this age, in this age group.
Yep.
So to be continued on that, but I'm very intrigued and I would like to know more. I'm curious about vitamin D. Have you been maintaining your vitamin D levels?
All the things.
All the things, yeah.
All the things. Mm-hmm. But the answer, and that's not to say that there may not be dietary changes that I could implement that would help or have my vitamin D levels checked more frequently. There's certainly things that I could do, but there's certainly a genetic component. But my mother never lifted weights. So I was always like, well, of course
she didn't lift weights. So of course, exactly.
Right. She didn't do all the things. I do all the things. I should be fine. But there is certainly a genetic component to it.
Well, this should give you some hope, Joyce, and anyone else listening. But my backstory, and a lot of people have heard this many times before, is that one of the reasons why I even went into this whole universe of healthy aging and how to age better, and started doing as much research as possible to apply to myself and then share with everybody else who wants to listen to me, is because I was walking. It wasn't a violent fall, and I did break my arm. It was a small fracture, but still shouldn't have happened. And that's when I had my first bone density test. So that was when I was 50. I'm 65 now, and I've been doing all these things that I nag everybody else to do. I do myself. I think everyone knows that. I walk the walk, I talk the talk, right? And so far, so good. Like, it hasn't gone beyond the point of osteopenia. So I want to just share that with you, that just because 2 years ago that's what it showed doesn't mean that that's what it was today. But again, we'll revisit this. So I'm very, very hopeful that because you're doing everything right, everything will be okay with you. So I also know, Joyce, tell us about you have 99 walks. We know that. Such a great concept, everyone. And I have to tell you that I mentioned I was a guest on Joyce's podcast, which is live, and she does it weekly, and she has someone on, sometimes with her husband, and they chat, and then they sometimes chat with people, and people from all over the country are tuning in live by phone. There's a number, and you listen, and it's motivating and it's fun. So it's always about 30 minutes. Like, we're going over, but you're very good at keeping it to 30 minutes. And it's just a great concept, Joyce. I mean, I have to say, great concept. And we will have links to that. But you also started something else, which I find intriguing. Tell us about your other company. It's like poles, called Jetty. Am I pronouncing it right? Jetty?
Yep.
Jetty poles?
Yep.
And is it like Nordic walking? Is it similar to that? Like, tell us about that, because there are so many studies that show incorporating your upper body in this way while you're walking just adds so much more to that walk. And I'm always in on, like, as my family, like, I'm Miss Efficiency. Be efficient. Like, what else can I do to maximize what it is I'm currently doing? So tell us about that.
I barely have to, because that's exactly what it is. The conversation started early on in our 99 Walks journey around how can we elevate people's walking practices? Mm-hmm. How can we enable people, empower them to get more bang for their buck? And we put it on hold for a little bit during the pandemic. We put the research and development on hold a little bit because we were so busy, frankly, growing 99 Walks. But then something really interesting happened. People discovered that they can move their body and they can exercise outside of a gym environment, outside of a studio environment. And people started to really appreciate and embrace the benefits of moving outdoors, which you, as a runner, I mean, there's a whole nother conversation to be had around the power of being outdoors.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So,
We could have a whole talk about that.
yes. So we took some inspiration from Nordic walking, which has a very interesting history around, it was born in Europe by the coaches for cross-country skiing who were trying to figure out how to keep their skiers in shape in the off season. But then we took that idea and we built a product, Jetty poles, that are patent pending, very unique, have a number of very specific and special attributes that enable you to take a full body workout with you on a walk.
It's brilliant. Again, being always looking for the efficient way. I really like this idea, and we will have a link to that and to your website so everyone can learn more about you and your background and more about your husband too. What a pro he is. Wow, that's so impressive with CrossFit. So do you have 3 takeaways you want to leave with us so that our audience will be motivated to get out there and start walking and talking?
The single most important is what we've said, I think now 3 times, which is every step counts. So if you are telling yourself, I don't have an hour a day to do X, Y, or Z, I only have 10 minutes. So why bother? Just put the why bother aside and take your 10 minutes because those things add up. That is the most important thing. The second is also, as we talked about, schedule it all and make yourself a priority by, I often say, you often hear people say, you've got to put yourself at the top of the list. And I got to think, like, as women, frankly, putting yourselves at the top of the list regularly is really hard. So I'm fond of saying, like, at least put yourself on the list, right? We don't even put ourselves on the list.
That's an ongoing challenge for women, just ongoing. And, it just continues on in life because even when you think, all right, my kids are older now, they're on their own, but then you have aging parents, you have to just accept this as fact, that this is how it is. So you will have to carve out that time for you. You just have to do it, right?
100%. And the third is I encourage everybody to really start tuning in to how they feel. And that sounds really obvious, but it's actually hard for many of us to do because many of us are just going from one thing to the next. So when you come in for a run, when you come in from a walk, when you come in from a workout, just pause for a moment as you walk in the door and check in with yourself. Because realizing the impact of the work that you just did, no matter what it is, that feeling is the feeling that you need to keep chasing. It's the feeling that'll keep you going, but it's no good if you don't even notice that you feel better.
Yeah. That's really such wonderful advice. And at the same time, if there's an issue that you're having where something might be hurting, you can also focus on that. That's also very helpful. I mean, as a runner, sometimes I have a few aches and pains I'd rather not have. And I find that lying down very quietly and just like almost visually starting from the top of my head, working my way through my body all the way down to my toes, and really just almost like a little car going through my body and checking in on everything. I do that periodically. It's really a fascinating thing. Yes, always check in with your body. Check in with your body. I agree with that.
Which we don't do. Most of us don't do it.
No.
As we run from one thing to the next.
We have always running. This was a lot of fun, Joyce. A lot. I mean, I could keep on talking with you. I have a lot of other questions. I am wishing you the best of luck with the results of your bone density test today. And I know you'll keep me posted offline. I'd love to have you come back on because there really is so much more that we can be talking. You're very motivating. And that's really the point. I want people on this show, and the focus is on doing all the things we can do to age better. And I want people on the show who will cause listeners to say, after the show's over, I'm doing that. I am going to do that. Not only start it, but stick with it too. And you're going to help people to do that. I thank you so much. So I can't wait to welcome you back again. Thank you.
I look forward to it. We definitely have so much more to talk about and do together.
Thanks again, Joyce. Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode of Gruff Talk, please do 2 things. First, share it with all your friends and family, and subscribe to Gruff Talk wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube, so you never miss a single episode. Until next time, remember this: we can't control getting older, but we can control how we do it. Talk to you soon. Age Better Podcast is a proud member of the Sound Advice Network. Sound Advice, women's voices amplified.